Hello, Avinas here with Fallout New Vegas. Throughout the game, we will encounter many NPCs with problems that will ask for our help to solve practically everything. However, to what extent is their request for help justified? Do they really need help, or do they just prefer to sit comfortably while the player does all the work? Well, that's what we are going to find out today. Specifically, we'll focus on the NCR Ranger Outpost Mojave, a staging ground for NCR troops that's not without its share of problems. If we talk to the man in charge, Ranger Jackson, he will tell us that they can fix anything because basically all the operatives on the base are recruits whose sole purpose is to guard the post and little else, orders imposed by the NCR bigwigs. And that's a bummer because it turns out that 5 minutes away on foot there's a group of giant ants cutting off the caravan trade route, and that's where I would step in to save the day. But look, this Jackson guy at no point mentions that he specifically isn't allowed to leave the base. Besides, as I said, the ants are practically right next to it. I mean, no one is going to say anything to him just because he leaves for a few minutes. So I tell him that's bullshit and that he should make up an excuse like he got 3 kebabs last night and doesn't want to plant the nuclear waste in the stall's toilets, or something similar. Once we've convinced Jackson, we follow him to see how he deals with the problem himself. To judge whether an NPC is able to solve the problem on their own or really needs help, we will have them take care of their issue 3 times. If they manage to solve it all 3 times, it means that they have no reason to leave the job to us. If they only manage it twice, it depends on which NPC they are. If they are a civilian with no combat experience, we could forgive them for not wanting to take the risk. However, if it's someone well armed and competent or a military member, as in this case, we will consider that the risk is justified and they should take care of it themselves. On the other hand, if they do not manage to solve it or only do it once, we will determine that they are indeed not capable of doing it and therefore asking for help is justified. So, back to the matter of the ants. After a journey of just over a minute, we arrive at the area blocked by them, which means it's time for action. Jackson reacts at a safe distance from the first giant ant, but for some reason decides to approach it instead of shooting from that point, which puts him in a somewhat compromising situation, especially when it comes to reloading his carbine, which for some reason is in bad shape. You'd think that a ranger, which is supposed to be one of the NCR's best assets, would at least have a decent weapon, but you know how the Republic is about anything that doesn't directly involve winning both. Anyway, leaving that aside, Jackson doesn't have much trouble. He takes a couple of hits, but nothing serious. First attempt succeeded. It seems like Jackson has not learned from his mistakes, because in the second encounter he nonchalantly approaches even closer and also without the weapon in his hands. Still, surprisingly, the first giant ant is not able to touch him, which makes me wonder if they really are as big a danger as Jackson makes them out to be. Though of course, if we take into account that for some reason Jackson decides to crouch rather than run properly to gain distance, I don't think his standard as far as threats go is very high. Although the second giant ant does beat up the ranger a bit, a win is a win. Second attempt passed. This time, the soldier does start properly, firing as soon as he turns the corner while keeping his distance. Moreover, there is not much to reproach him in terms of marksmanship, beyond a couple of shots that end up in the concrete walls. When it finally looked like the title of Ranger wasn't too big for Jackson after all, he decides to do the dumbest shit of the century and runs unarmed straight into the fucking faces of the 2 remaining ants. Still, ignoring a bruised calf that he'll notice when he wakes up tomorrow, his stupidity doesn't lead to any serious consequence. So, 3 out of 3. Third and final attempt achieved. Well, I think we can conclude that Jackson is clearly capable of handling the ant issue on his own, so his request for help is unjustified. But before continuing with the rest of the video, a short message from today's sponsor, me. If you are enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like, left a comment after watching, and even subscribe if you haven't already. And with that said, let's get back to the idiots of the Mojave. With the trade route business taken care of, let's move on to what is supposed to be the other most experienced person in the base. That's right, another ranger. Specifically, we're talking about Ranger Ghost. And while the ridiculousness of her name is already a problem in itself, it turns out she has yet another one. You see, north of the outpost there is a town of streetwalkers. Yes, they are literally hookers, known as Nipton. Anyway, the spooky ranger has seen smoke coming out of that shady place, so she's sure that the town has been raided. So she wants me to go to the town hall to take a a look. If you confront her about why she doesn't go herself, she says she'd like to, but Jackson would put her behind bars if she moves from her post. However, since Jackson has already solved the ant issue, I think he himself could stay up there and keep watch while the ghost takes a trip to Horland. After all, the guy spends all day wandering around the office. He can keep doing the same up here, and if anyone needs him, he'll still be available. Now that we have convinced both Rangers, we follow the albino ghost to check if she is really capable of completing the task. However, this time the problem is not only the quest itself. Getting to Nipton also has its share of problems, especially if you have to go through a certain place, ideal for an ambush that definitely does not look suspiciously quiet at all. For some reason, Ghost decides to stop and talk to a crowd, but the schizophrenia issues aside, the ranger casually walks down the middle of the road. Still, it must be said that she reacts almost as soon as one of the jackals opens fire. But of course, she's in the open. Ghost backups looking for some cover, but she thinks twice and decides to stay in the middle of the road again because clearly the rangers are very smart. One of the bandits hits the blue vehicle instead of the ranger, which can be a bit dangerous. Yeah, I think we have to consider this as lost. The ranger decides to greet the crowd again because good manners shouldn't be lost. This time she comes with a lot of energy. A lot of energy to die as quickly as possible, of course. And while the die % speedrun may be quite an achievement, it's not exactly what we were looking for this time. I'd say nice try, but to be honest, it was pathetic. 0 for 2. With 2 failures, Ghost has already lost, but let's see if she can at least regain her dignity on this last attempt. For some reason, 2 jackals just explode. They must have had some serious beef with another gang member or something, but even then, the ranger fails to change anything, loses her weapon again, and decides to run toward where most of the jackals are. And surprisingly, it looks like it's going to work. If Ghost keeps running in that direction, maybe? Well, apparently not. In her infinite wisdom, Ghost decides it's better to stand still for half an hour, cosplay as a target, and take as many bullets as possible. The more, the better. To no one's surprise except the Rangers, this strategy doesn't work out too well. So, knowing that it is impossible for the ranger to survive the journey to Nipton, we can confirm that the Ghost's request for help is indeed justified. Still, while getting to the source of the problem is itself part of the problem, I would like to know if our favorite ranger would be able to complete the proper quest objective, that is, to get to the Nipton Town Hall and survive to tell the tale. After exchanging a few words with the bandits and convincing them to let the crappy ghost pass, we arrive at the gates of Nipton, where a fucking asshole suffers an unfortunate heart attack due to completely natural causes. Ghost turns the corner and reacts quickly with her secret weapon, hiding in plain sight. Somehow it kinda works and only 2 of the legionaries seem to smell something, but their eyesight isn't exactly spectacular because they can see shit within an inch of the ranger. When oxygen finally reaches their brain, the legionaries open attack against her, who had no idea what to do once her first part of the plan worked. So after taking several cuts and bullets, she decides to retreat to real cover. The dogs also get stuck on the same fucking pole as before, because there isn't a single competent living being here. Ghost managed to isolate herself with a single legionary momentarily, but the one-on-one doesn't last long, and soon she's back to taking more bullets all over her body, to the point of being destabilized, which dooms her completely. Curious strategy, but it's not going to work when you are outnumbered 6-fold. First failed attempt. Once again, the ranger relies on the pole technique, and once again, only 2 legionaries get close again. This time though, they spot her much faster, and the ranger flees again with her tail between her legs. Or so it seems, because she changed her mind and decides to advance directly to the enemy group. She tries to mess them up by going around the side of a house, and even manages to finish off one of the mongrels, but ends up failing once again. Another questionable strategy, although it worked a little better. 2 failed attempts, and we can now conclude that Ghost definitely doesn't stand a chance. Having lost 5 out of 6 total attempts, let's hope for a last-minute miracle. And maybe it will happen, because this time the ranger decides not to crash head-on into the pole. A small improvement, but one that is overshadowed by the stupidity of moving directly towards the group of legionaries again. I really don't understand how they made this idiot a ranger. I think we can all agree that this was the worst and most ridiculous attempt out of the 6. Awful performance. So we can confirm that even ignoring the problem of getting to Nipton, once there, Ranger Ghost would be nothing more than dog food for the Legion. And that concludes this video. Hope you liked it and see you in the next one. Bye!